Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? It's your boy, The Doc, and I am back for the NFL season. And you guys know what that means. It means that injuries are right around the corner. In this video, we're going to be talking about all the quarterbacks that got injured last year and update you guys on how their recoveries are going so that you know kind of what's going to happen heading into training camp. And at the end of this video, I'm going to have the one quarterback that will not be on any of my fantasy teams this season. Let's get into it. All right, the first quarterback that we're going to be talking about is Daniel Jones with the New York Giants. He's coming off that right ACL tear. Everything has been pretty quiet on Daniel Jones so far from a recovery perspective. All we have to go on right now is the very vague interviews from about a month ago that both Jones and head coach Brian Daboll gave about his rehab being on track. Jones had surgery on November 23rd last year, which is only going to put him at about 8 months into his recovery when training camp starts later this month. I did expect him to be able to participate in a non-contact jersey for most, if not all, of the preseason as they prepare him to possibly start in week 1, but that is not a guarantee. ACL recoveries, typically you're looking at about that 9 to 11 month mark. So he'll be right at the cusp of being able to return in week 1. Reports from minicamp indicated that none of Jones's backups are really making any significant strides to challenge him for the quarterback 1 spot if he's healthy though. So we're going to hope that a Daniel Jones is healthy. Otherwise, we are avoiding this quarterback situation completely for fantasy. And to be honest, we probably should avoid it anyway. The second guy we're going to be talking about is DeShaun Watson. He's coming off a right glenoid fracture and a labrum tear in his throwing shoulder. Now, he attempted to play through the labrum tear, but ultimately was forced to shut it down after the fracture in his scapula was revealed. Before the injuries, Watson did actually rack up a pretty good start to the season last year. He landed as the quarterback 11 through the first 3 games of the year. The problem is that he has only played in 12 total games since being traded to the Browns. Not exactly what I'd call reliable from a fantasy perspective. His recovery does appear to be on track, though, for him to be back throwing in training camp. That's a good sign. In the veteran minicamp, he was able to throw in 7-on-7s, but was still only throwing every other day. So they are limiting his reps from a throwing perspective. I'd expect that to continue as we start training camp later this month. He's going to be on a pitch count. They're going to limit the number of throws he makes every day, and it's possible that they're even limiting how far they're letting him throw in training camp. Again, not a guy I'm really excited to draft this year for fantasy, but at least you're getting an injury discount with him going outside of the top 20 quarterbacks drafted on Underdog right now. The next 2 quarterbacks on the list that we're going to be talking about are Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, both guys coming back from Achilles ruptures with some very distinct differences between their recovery timelines. Now, both Rodgers and Cousins appear to be on track to at least attempt to play in week 1 of the NFL season. Both of them participated in OTAs and were throwing, though both of their head coaches have admitted that they aren't being asked to do a lot in those training camps and have not been cleared for contact. Of the 2, Rodgers at least has the benefit of running a system he's already familiar with players that he's worked with all offseason last year. He's also had nearly 2 more months to recover from his injury. All accounts are that both of these guys are pacing towards participating in training camp, with likely restrictions coming from a running and contact perspective for the preseason. The problem is their ADP is already rising on Underdog. Both of these guys now within the top 20 quarterbacks drafted and are moving up at a rapid clip. So you're not going to get much of an injury discount on neither one of these guys. All right, now the next 2 guys on this list are probably the 2 biggest names from a fantasy perspective. First up, we got Anthony Richardson. He's coming back from a grade 3 AC sprain that he had surgery on. Richardson is back throwing footballs and is expected to be a full participant when training camp starts later this month. Reports did surface in early June that he was having a little bit of shoulder soreness from throwing. This isn't something I'm overly concerned about, though. 2 months left before week 1. We're not going to worry too much about some residual soreness. He had 2 heavy throwing days before he actually had that soreness. So far, everything is looking good for Richardson. He showed a lot of flashes for fantasy greatness last year in the limited 4-game sample that we got when he was actually healthy. So we're excited to see what Anthony Richardson can do with a full healthy preseason and hopefully a fully healthy season. You're going to pay a premium for him. He's already going inside the top 8 quarterbacks on Underdog, but the potential is there for him to still be worth the value at that pick. All right, last but certainly not least, let's talk about Joe Burrow. Coming off a scapholunate ligament repair, Burrow is back throwing, but is expected to ease his way back into training camp. Now, this is a pretty unique injury. In 8 years covering NFL injuries, I've actually never seen this injury with a quarterback, so we're in pretty uncharted waters from a recovery timeline perspective. He still hasn't been cleared to do full contact practices, and given the unique nature of the injury, I'd expect that we see Burrow on a pretty tight leash in terms of throwing volume and contact allowed this preseason. I would not be surprised if we only see him in 1 preseason games for a few snaps, maybe a full series, but I would be very impressed if he could get multiple preseason games in this year. From a fantasy perspective, Burrow was kind of Jekyll and Hyde last year due to this injury. Despite having 4 games over 21 fantasy points, he was only the quarterback 18 in the 11 weeks that he started last season. He scored under 10 points in 4 of his other outings. For his career, though, Burrow has been a very solid fantasy producer. He's 11th in total fantasy points per game among all quarterbacks, but he's also missed 22% of his possible NFL starts. So if you're taking a risk on Joe Burrow, just know there's a good chance he's going to miss 1 to 3 games each and every year on average. And sometimes you're going to have years like last year where the whole season is a wash. All right, so which quarterback am I not drafting this year for fantasy? Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. Currently, the quarterback 18 and rising on Underdog. Achilles injuries are statistically unbeaten at the position player level. From a pure anatomical standpoint, the recovery is just brutal. At 1 year post-op, not even 6 months, at 1 year post-op, we're averaging a 20% decrease in strength on the Achilles repair side. Calf muscle endurance is only 60% of the unaffected side. Force production deficits can last 2 to 3 years post-op. The running mechanics and balance of players who have had Achilles injuries have been shown to be deficit compared to the non-affected side a full year after recovery. With one leg performing at a significantly lower level than the other, it's no wonder that we see a litany of compensation level injuries on the affected side from these guys coming back from an Achilles. Cousins' injury is also on his plant leg. That's a significant difference between his injury and Aaron Rodgers' injury, outside of the fact that Aaron Rodgers had 2 more months to recover from his. Now, the force from that plant leg is directly correlated to throwing velocity, distance, and timing for Cousins' throws. I'd expect that we will see a significant drop in all 3 areas for most of this season. Now, the arguments that are for Cousins are weak at best, in my opinion. We don't have a good example of a quarterback coming back from an Achilles in this century. Yeah, but you're confident that Kirk Cousins is the guy that's going to break the mold that we don't even know exists yet. He wasn't as mobile in the pocket anyway. Yeah, and you think less mobility is going to help Kirk Cousins at the NFL level this year. Well, they paid him big money to be the starter, so who cares if he's injured or not? You're telling me that teams have never overspent on players, ever. Cousins is in a new system, and he's going to be starting from behind due to his rehab that got interrupted when he switched teams midway through it. From a workout perspective, he's going to be behind the curve from the beginning. The team's already drafted his replacement, a sign that they aren't even confident that he could work out completely despite paying him serious money. His contract's effectively a 2-year deal, but there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to outplay Michael Penix Jr. for both of those years if they're both healthy. To me, there's way too much telling me to totally avoid Kirk Cousins in fantasy this year and look elsewhere for my QB2 this season. But hey, you don't have to believe me. I'm just a doctor. All right, that's it for the quarterback injury update video. If you like this video, make sure you like and comment down below. If this video can get 500 likes, I'll give away a free draft guide, which you should be picking up anyway if you like injury content, because it's the only place that you will see my exclusive draft or don't draft videos for all the guys that were injured last season. That's hitting at about an 80% clip over the last 5 years, one of the most accurate draft or don't draft lists for injured players that you can look at exclusively on the Fantasy Headliners Draft Guide. Let me know in the comments, what position group would you like me to cover next? I'm looking forward to doing these videos before training camp, because you know there's going to be guys getting hurt and we're going to have to be talking about it here on the Fantasy Headliners. Appreciate you guys. The Doc is out.